Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. And after so much gentleman's agreement drama since the release of Modern Warfare 3, things finally came to a head last night and hit the timeline after weeks of pros deciding what's going on in private chats behind the scenes. Things came public and it seems like the community won out again for the time being. All the pro teams, including FaZe and Cellium, agreeing to get rid of snaking from professional play. Some pros though believe this will not last, and as soon as matches start, pros including Cellium may be right back on the snaking train. Big W for now. Lots to dive into today. Will it last though? Very much interested your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. So yesterday, we got this tweet from Dashy after seemingly a scrim up against the Atlanta FaZe where he said, no pride, no integrity, everyone's snaking every possible head glitch, it's time to go. And we've seen this for the last several years. Back in the day, this mechanic has always been a thing in COD. You just about go prone, you sprint forwards, and you bounce up and down. We've seen it for years. But pre-Cellium is what a lot of people would say, really. Infinite Warfare, seasons like that, it was definitely a viable feature in the game, but the pros generally agreed, with the exception of one or two teams and one or two events in the season, not to use it. And when it was getting abused, the pros came together and generally said, all right, let's stop doing this. But for the past couple of years, it's been a very big feature in the game, and it's, to be honest, kind of ruins the watching and the playing experience for many players. And especially on this game, you know, sandbags heady, P5 invasion, you've got a guy snaking it for 60 seconds. What are you going to do? It's not ideal for all scenarios, and look, the general feeling is the devs should fix it, and maybe they will try, and maybe they will succeed, but more than likely that's not going to be the case. And as Merc says, look, the players wouldn't have to worry about it if the devs fix the problem. And Merc went on to say, look, the players shouldn't be at fault here, it's on the devs to sort this stuff out. The reality is that for many years the devs have never dealt with this mechanic. It's ruining the game to players to watch at the moment, especially the pros feel that way in the practice they're playing behind the scenes at the moment. And there's all this talk about, oh well, you can't ban this, can't ban that because of skill gap, or we can't use the smokes because it creates too much randomness, but yet apparently it's perfectly fine for someone to snake a heady for 60 seconds and completely destroy any flow or enjoyment that people can actually have in the game. So there's been a pressure on the pros to try and deal with this. Many of the community, members of the community and the fans have been saying over the last few days, look, how come you guys are talking about, oh no, smokes aren't allowed, oh no, double trophies is fine, and all this stuff, but yet snaking is still a mechanic that everybody does. And many pros, I would say the vast majority of pros, are against snaking and would want it gone. The problem that the pros have had is actually getting that over the line. The belief has tended to be that, oh no, we can't GA it, because how do you tell between somebody snaking and somebody that's just, you know, reloading, going prone, standing up against stuff like this? There is a line, and it's a bit of a grey area for sure, but there is definitely a difference between somebody snaking again and again and again for 20 plus seconds on a head glitch and somebody going prone to reload and standing up again. Sure, it might feel like you got snaked a couple of times, but that's always happened whenever snaking was GA'd back in the day. So the pros last night were discussing this. All right, could we maybe get rid of it? Would Cellium agree? Would FaZe agree? And as Simp says, if pros agree to no snaking, who do y'all think would still snake? And people, of course, are saying, oh, well, Cell or Drazah, stuff like this. And the typical way that if you GA something, if somebody was to break it or refuse to agree, you simply don't practice against them. You don't give them any practice. They have to scrim amateurs, or maybe even they won't practice them. I don't know. That's usually how GAs have been upheld, but it's kind of just been a thing for the last couple of years that, oh, well, Cell won't agree to stop, so we've kind of all got to do it type thing. I would say the majority of pros would be happy to stop, and seemingly they are, as we'll see in a couple of seconds. But it's felt like for the last couple of years, they could never get such an agreement over the line. But everything came public last night. The community has had a lot of pressure on this, and the pros seemingly came to an agreement. Another argument, of course, that goes around is that, well, if you stop people snaking now, as soon as it gets to a real match, people will start snaking again. And look, we're going to discuss in the coming minutes here what's happened last night. But let's be honest, Cellium versus, I don't know, Scrappy or Kenny, whatever, 1v1, COD Champs Grand Finals for the, you know, for the bread. Is he snaking the heady or is he not? I don't know. I'll leave that up for debate. But still, as Ake says, this argument doesn't really matter because back in the day, because players didn't snake in every scrim, it wasn't built into your head to snake the heady. So it wasn't the instinct behavior and therefore it wasn't really done. And as Dashy says, since Infinite Warfare, like at least pre-Infinite Warfare and really since Infinite Warfare when they actually said, all right, guys, let's stop doing this BS, nobody did it. It was a respected GA. It wasn't part of the instinct instinctual behavior the pros would do. And X did make the point the other day, and I think that was a fair point, that really since Cellium's come around, a lot of the pros over the last few years have grown up on this mechanic. They've used it every single year to some degree. So getting them to stop is a challenge, but if you stop in practice for months, you're probably not going to use it on LAN as well. Maybe you are, but in that case, your team's getting blacklisted from scrims. That's usually how it goes. So this is the argument that goes back and forth here, and Bean says, look, everyone agreed to no stair glitching, but people did. And X is like, look, the problem is the players. You know, no prize, just don't be weird. How about this? The reality is it probably won't be fixed. The actual solution is, and what it should be, and what we've done for decades, but not maybe for the last couple of years, just don't be weird. And that's what Ake says, that's what Slasher agrees. And the discussions then continue between Octane and, you know, Ronnie tweets out here, look, GA snaking, blacklist teams that snake, and, you know, that would be a couple of steps to do. And it's been, you know, people tend to think, oh no, you can't do it. The pros have said for years that you can't do it, and all this stuff. But as Octane says, you know, people feel like they've got no choice. Who's going to voluntarily play at a disadvantage if Cellium or whoever is going to snake me on the other side? But as Slasher says, if we did this, then it would help. Now, obviously, people are going to say, oh, Slasher, you're on FaZe, you could have done it last year, but, you know, whatever. If all pro teams and top amps said no, then sure, they can find people on Twitter to scrim, and I'd be okay with that. Hard to go to events, though, without top-tier practice. So, yeah, his theory is, look, blacklist FaZe, don't any of the amateurs don't scrim them. If the top AMs also said no, and etc, etc, then you get to a world where, you know, they wouldn't do it anymore. So then people were really starting to think, okay, could we actually do this? Could the pros actually come together and GA snaking? Is that even possible? I mean, it happens, what, 5-6 years ago, but since then, during Cold War, it was a big talking point as well. Early Cold War, formal, you know, the classic weirdo, like, tweets and everything that happened at the time. You guys, if you've been around, know the story on that. But, you know, Cellium apparently was just not agreeing to it. They were trying to get him to do it, and the teams, basically Cell was like, no, I'm not going to stop snaking. This is how I'm going to play the game. And everyone just kind of gave up trying, so everyone just did it for the last couple of years. But as Octane says, you don't need 9 of 12 teams to GA it, you just need one player. Because his opinion is that everyone agrees not to do it, but from Cellium, and obviously we get Ben responding, defending Cell. Actually, Octane's like, look, I'm not baiting at all. Seemingly fully on board with the idea that if Cell simply changed his mind and agreed not to do it, then the entire league, the dominoes would fall and everything would be fine again. So Zuma talked about this as well, and obviously went on stream. Zuma and Slasher tried together to try and find a way around this. And a lot of the times the issue is that these things happen behind the scenes. The community always gets frustrated that the GA discussions go on in group chats behind the scenes between the pros, and we don't get to know who's voted for what. There's no accountability in these discussions, and if the pros are going to make the rule set and the pros are going to enforce these rule sets, then they probably better be public as well. So this is what Slasher says. Good luck getting everyone to vote publicly, but we want it gone, says Boston. Need 8 more votes, right? He's like, okay, we're going to go for this. Boston are down. We need 9 of 12 to agree. So let's do it. Slasher then says, look, I'm the rep. I'm voting for it publicly. Here we go. So Assault then from Los Angeles Good as their rep comes on Twitter and says, look, get it out. So and then Seattle also down. Claytor says Carolina are out. So all of a sudden there's 4 teams that want it gone on public, like publicly on Twitter. Shotzzy then replies, OpTic are out as well. We want it gone. Accuracy says Minnesota out. So it's kind of wondering, like, how has this not been able to happen before? But I think sometimes in the private group chats, when there's no, like, you know, public perception or public pressure, things aren't quite the same. And then we get Ghosty, and even FaZe, I think even Cellium apparently said, yeah, sure, let's get rid of it. And within a couple of minutes, all of a sudden, there was enough agreement among the pros to get snaking officially gentleman's agreemented. So, you know, massive credit to what Zuma was doing on stream last night, but also to Slasher, right? The Slasher World League might officially be back in business because, you know, I don't think I would ever see the day where snaking was officially GA'd by pros again via a public vote of all things, but that's what happened as of last night. The question, of course, is this going to last? But after this happens, there was then also talk from other players, okay, what if we GA this? What if we GA that? Why leave it at just snaking? There's other things the pros want to get gone. Now, to me, I think getting rid of snaking is going to improve the experience, like to watch especially, but also to play for the pros to such an extent that even if they bring in other questionable GAs as well, I don't really mind. If snaking's gone, I think it's better for everyone. And as Dashy says, ask and you shall receive. And the pros really had, you know, got their eye in at this point. And then we saw a Slasher say, all right, Boston want ATS and single tap sprint gone. Vote to GA it. Boston wants it gone. We need 8 to agree. Pred says that OpTic is out, we agree on that one, and then eventually basically all the teams agree to another couple of things. As aBeZy says, look, if we're going to get rid of snaking, which is let's be honest here, if there's one team that benefits most from snaking, it might well be FaZe, because Cell and Drazah have been, you know, some of the top Cobras over the last couple of years, and they're now on the same team. But aBeZy's like, look, alright, if we're going to ban snaking, fine, but, you know, I don't want any movement frauds about. So this is always the point that aBeZy and other kind of cracked out players have said, that, you know, there's certain players that maybe don't have especially good movement, and they'll use single tap or ATS to make themselves better. So aBeZy's like, look, we want that gone, and basically they agreed to do that. We then even got Slasher saying, alright, I'm going to keep it rolling. Boston wants no sound EQ online. Now, sound equalization, massive talking point, of course, last season. Whether they can actually enforce this, that's another question. And on this game, sound EQ is less relevant because dead silence is actually a thing. But even then, with dead silence, let's say I climb a ladder, or let's say I swap weapons, there's still a bit of a sound cue there. And if someone's got sound EQ on, they can hear that better than they would be otherwise. And in certain situations, ARs in this game are using stalker boots in respawns rather than covert sneakers, so they still make noise. So sound EQ is not going to be as egregious in this game as it was last year, but it's still, you know, ideally it should be gone. FaZe agree for it to be gone. Obviously, Boston are in favor of this as well. Even Dashy tried to get a vote to get rid of dynamic aim assist. I don't believe this really went anywhere, but I know that Dashy's been calling for this for some time because he wants the aim assist to be weaker so that, you know, certain players that have a really good shot, such as Dashy, might well gain some degree of advantage. But in the end, we got something like this. Basically, all the teams agreed for snaking to be gone. All these teams agreed for single tap and ATS to be gone, and all these teams agreed for sound EQ to be gone. So technically, all of those things are now GA'd by the pros. Whether they can uphold this, whether they can enforce this, that's now the question, especially when 8s began shortly afterwards, and here's Clay immediately snaking here on P1 on Karachi. Now, Clay did go on to say, alright, look, my bad. It was first game on, and it takes a little bit, understandably, to get out of the muscle memory, because, you know, that's all they've been doing for the last, like, while. So, you know, Clay just snaking this heady kind of again and again and again, and as Drazah says, alright, we're back. It lasted maybe an hour, and snaking is officially back. But, you know, I think that they will stick with this for a little bit longer, as Clay says, look, first game, alright, takes a bit of time to get it out of your system, but the commitment is still to maintaining this snaking GA for as long as they reasonably can. But as we saw Hicksy mention earlier, and even Envoy says now, and it seems the other Toronto boys have similar concerns about whether snaking will actually be upheld in this way. Because as Envoy says, by the weekend, snaking will be back. Don't scrim them, call them out to the public. Who cares about accountability when someone walks away winning an event because of a snake? And this is the question. Sure, they might be able to GA it from practice, but come an event, say hypothetical scenario, Major 1 Grand Finals, or even Major 1 Winners Round 1. You know, here's Cellium in a 1v1 in a crucial round against Shotzzy. Cell hits the snakes, gets the kill, and, you know, what happens then? Or even if he doesn't hit the full snakes, but he kind of goes a little bit up and down, then does the other team be like, oh my god, this guy broke the GA? Like, I'm absolutely convinced there will be drama on this when the season starts and the matches get underway on, oh, did this guy snake? Did that guy snake? There'll be tweets in the timeline like, oh my god, this guy snaked us for the win. Can't believe it. Like, you know, either trying to blacklist that team, or the teams will decide, all right, maybe we can't GA it because this guy's going to do it anyway, and therefore all hell breaks loose and everyone's starting to do it again as they previously were. But that's been the concern that the pros have had for the last, like, 5 years, that, well, we can't GA it because Cell's going to do it anyway type thing. But in that scenario, the idea is that you blacklist FaZe and scrims. Whether they would actually do that in such a scenario, that's another question, but I'm sure there's going to be lots of drama on this, and as Ben says, you know, we're going to have to investigate any potential GA violations, because if someone reloads, goes prone, stands up again, maybe, okay, it looks like a bit of a snake, but it's not really, and if the other team perceives it that way, will they all of a sudden start snaking on the map as well, especially in a crucial series? So I don't know. I'm excited to see where this goes. I mean, several years ago, we did this successfully, and we GA'd snaking, and it was never an issue. The pros would not abuse it in crucial moments. Whether that's the case for these crop of pro players, that's what X has said, that these guys are not the same gentlemen maybe that we used to have in the scene a few years ago, and even you could argue that wasn't the case then, but whatever, they've agreed to something. Whether it will last, whether it can be upheld, that's another question entirely, but very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.